Hi, everyone. This is Megan Reed from the Army Community Service Family Advocacy Program. As you know, we've had to cancel all of our in-person events due to safety concerns for the public health crisis. But what we'd like to do is to continue to provide education and information to you in smaller bits, maybe about once a week through the ACS Facebook page. So today we're going to do a little bit of our stress management class. We're going to focus on short-term stress, or otherwise known as acute stress, and we're going to go over some coping skills or techniques of how to deal with that best. We're going to promise to keep these short, about 20 minutes each, because we know that although you're home, you're also very, very busy. So hopefully you can find time to sit down and view these and learn a little bit of something new every week. Okay? All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Bear with me a second while I pull up our slides. Okay, and we're in business. So again, as I mentioned, this week we're going to be talking about acute stress mostly, so short-term stress. And then next week we'll do another video where we'll jump right in and we'll talk a little bit more about chronic stress or long-term stressors and some other more in-depth techniques on how to deal with those chronic long-term stressors you're experiencing as well right now. So let's just start at the beginning. What are we talking about when we talk about stress here? This is going to be our working definition. This is going to be how we're thinking about stress. Nobody's unfamiliar with stress, of course, during this time. You all have experienced it for sure, one way or another, during the days and the weeks, and at this point, over a month that we've experienced in quarantine life. And some of us know it as a gut feeling or as more of an experience. But if we were to put it in words, this is kind of how we would describe it. So we're talking about an event or an anticipated event, so something that might happen in the future, right, that hasn't happened yet, for which the demands of the situation threatens to exceed the resources of the individual. So what we're talking about is actual or perceived threat here, right? I've highlighted the word threatens. We don't know if it will exceed our resources, but we think that it might, and that scares us, and so it puts us in a state of stress. And what we're talking about when we're talking about resources, of course, we're talking about the things that we have that we use in our daily lives to accomplish tasks, to cope with stressful events or difficult events. So we're talking about things like coping skills, we're talking about things like communication skills, strategies that we may have, routines that we have to get things done, those types of things. Those are our resources that we carry with us. But when a situation looks like it might be a little too hard for us to handle, that's that threat that we perceive. And what we're really experiencing is a perceived, like a loss of control over the situation. We might feel a little helpless. In extreme situations, we might even feel a little bit hopeless. So we're thinking about things that are happening right now in the present time, the present day, things that need to get done, or things that are in the future of our family, or the future of what's going to be for dinner, those kind of things. So again, when we're talking about acute stress, we're talking about something short-term, something that's you're experiencing right now, demands and pressures of the recent past, something you're experiencing today, or something in the more recent future that might be ahead. But again, things that are more focused in the short term. And we often think about stress as being, or we often talk about stress anyways, being something that's negative for us, right? Something that is, causing us health problems or causing us distress. But really, stress is a natural response of the body to provide the body the resources that it might need to tackle a difficult situation, right? So an example of stress that might be good for us, might be motivating for us, might help us accomplish a task would be a deadline for a project at work, right? Or a deadline for a paper at school. So we know we have this end state. We might be kind of pulling ourselves into a state of stress or a little bit of a heightened state as we try to scramble and finish this thing. But ultimately that deadline, that stressor is there as a motivating tool for us to push us to be able to finish. And as we get closer and closer to that deadline, we may be kind of, biting our nails a bit more. We may notice that our heart is pounding faster. Maybe, for example, if we're taking a test, something that's really happening right in the moment where the deadline is now. We might notice our heartbeat increasing. We might have sweaty palms, those type of things. That's really your body kind of revving up to give you the energy and the resources you need to accomplish that task. So maybe, way back in the day, tiger's coming after us and we've got to get out of here. That would be your body revving up and giving you that power and that fuel to run away and maintain your safety in that kind of a situation. So good stress that does good things for us, we would refer to as eustress. And then the stress that we experience that's more negative and can have long-term health consequences, we would call that distress. And in the current situation, really, we're definitely experiencing those acute stressors, even though we're not in the office working or we're not in the school buildings, completing school. We still have deadlines that we're working with, and now we're really working with the same deadlines that everyone in our home is working with. So there may be a bit of a scramble for everyone to use the technology that's available, or to use the shower at a certain time. So we're kind of scrambling for resources, and it's not just our personal deadlines that we're working under. We're really considering the deadlines of everyone in our family, which can kind of add to that stress as well. And also throughout the day, we're taking on and putting on our different hats, right? We're an employee for a couple minutes, and then we're a spouse, and then we may be a caretaker or a parent to someone in our home. The switching back and forth, that can cause us stress as well, as we try to switch gears and think with a different part of our brain and think about how we should be functioning in the different roles that we carry out every day. So that can cause us stress as well. The second stressors that we'll talk more about next week, those are chronic stress, so that's long-term stressors. We are experiencing that during the quarantine life as well, as this has gone on a little bit longer. But this may not feel as immediate. We may not get that same jolt physiological response that we do from the acute stressors. This is more graded, this is more gradual, this is more sort of that daily grind that does kind of grind on our bodies and our mind over time, but we may not feel those physical symptoms as much as the acute stress. So some of the long-term stressors that, there's some examples on the slide that are pretty intense examples, including poverty, chronic medical problems, dysfunctional family or past trauma. These are stressors in their own, and then they're creating additional stressors, financial stressors, interpersonal stressors, stressors with developing. So they're fairly complex, and that chronic stress is definitely something our body is not used to dealing with and was not really fully designed to deal with. That acute stress that gets us out of a bad situation, that's how we were kind of designed to react and respond. But when we're feeling that we're in that kind of heightened state constantly, that's what can really kind of cause us some health problems or some physical and mental distress. Okay, so the physiology of that stress response, what we're really talking about is that fight, flight, or freeze, right? That response that we all learned about in biology, psychology, whatever discipline we kind of remember learning a little bit about this in the past at school. I'm not going to go too far into this. There's a lot of great resources if you want to dive into sort of the brain science about this process. But what I want you to notice in this graphic is basically what all of the organs of the body that are really engaged in this stress response. So while this is feeling like a very mental and internal thing that's happening to us sometimes, it's a full body experience. Your full body is revving up as you're becoming more stressed. So you'll notice that the lungs, they're breathing, they're more rapidly, something that maybe you've noticed when you're stressed in your own body. Increased heart rate is a very, very common experience that people may notice. Their heart starts to beat faster, stronger, feels like it's coming out of your chest a little bit. The digestive system is decreasing at that same time. So maybe it's lunchtime, but you're feeling so much stress that you're actually not able to have awareness of some of those bodily sensations like hunger or thirst or having to go to the bathroom. You're less aware of those minor functions because your body is hyper focused on the stressful event and sort of, getting away to safety or moving through it. Or accomplishing the task, whatever it may be. So I want you to think, as you see this little graphic here, I want you to think about your personal body's stress response. And I want you to just take a second and try to put your mind's eye into that place and think about what is happening typically for you. If that's a little difficult to do while you're not in stress, the next time that you do find yourself feeling stressed, I want you to pause for just a second and see if you can check in with the different parts of your body and see what you're feeling in those different places. Because while some of these experiences are very universal, like that increased heart rate, changes to the breathing, things like that, other folks have maybe more unique experiences physically while they're becoming more stressed. Some folks say that they get flushed in their face, they get sweaty palms, tension in the neck and the shoulders is another very popular symptom that people are experiencing. I had one person tell me one time that they had one of their ears would become very, very red as they continued to be more and more stressed. And so that was a big sign to them physically. Oh, wow, I feel the ear going, I'm really getting stressed at this point. And we really want to have that awareness of our own bodies, right? We want to know, because our mind is often moving very, very quickly, which is part of that stress response. Think safety, safety, safety. How do I get out of this? How do I get through this? And it's harder to focus back in and have that awareness of what's happening in our body. But we want to notice those beginning stages of this increased stress response in our body, because the sooner we can catch that our body is becoming stressed, that we are really moving rapidly into this acute stress state, the sooner we can attack it with these coping skills and these coping techniques, and the more effective that they're going to be. If you can catch yourself before you're completely stressed and it's moved past stress and really you're into more of an anxiety or a panic state. But if you can catch these symptoms early and use the skills early, they're more likely to be effective quicker. So we want to try to have as much awareness of ourselves and our bodies and our thoughts and feelings as possible so that we can treat ourselves, we can give ourselves the medicine we need as soon as possible to bring our body back down to calm. And so for these acute stress incidents, that's exactly what we're trying to do for our body. We'll talk about other techniques that you may commonly hear associated with stress management, but right when you're acutely stressed, when your body is up here, when you're very revved up, you're gonna have to take a minute and use some skills to try to bring your body physically back down to a calm state. Because when we're back down to that calm and neutral state, that's when we gain access to some of the higher level thinking skills that we actually really need to solve the problems that we have in life. When we're very aroused physiologically from that stress response, we sort of lose the connection to the parts of our brain that allow us to do critical thinking, logical thinking, strategy, experience empathy, things that are really heavy skills that we need in our complex world to solve our problems. So if we can pull our body back down to calm, then our body and mind has access to the maximum amount of skills that we really need to accomplish and tackle all the tasks that we have in life, right? So to bring ourselves back down, that's what all of these skills are working towards. And the first skill that we have listed here is not one that you've never heard before, I'm sure. Deep breathing, slow, deep breathing repeatedly. This is a skill that if you use it and you repeat, it will force your body to come back down to that calm state. Time and time again, studies show us that if we do this skill for long enough, we can really clear our mind and pull in the air and push it back out repeatedly. This will force our body's blood pressure to come down, our heart rate to slow again, our breathing to become more regular. So we're treating those same stress symptoms that we have and kind of forcing them back to their normal state. So when we think about deep breathing, we're going to want to pull air in for a slow count. Let's say a count of 5, right? So air comes in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to want to hold the air in our lungs for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to want to slowly push the air back out to the same count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While we're doing this, it's helpful to put your hand on your stomach and feel your stomach inflate and deflate as you repeat this activity. And that'll let you know, that'll indicate that you are in fact deep breathing rather than shallow chest breathing, which is how we regularly breathe in our regular life. But this skill is most effective when we are deep breathing, when we are slowly deep breathing. So we're going to want to repeat that as much as we can, as long as we have the time to do. But even, for some folks, even just a repeat of 5 times, those slow, deep breaths, they'll start to notice that difference in their body and mind and feel that calm coming down. So that's the first skill we want to throw in our back pocket. It's a great skill too, because you can take it anywhere. When we gain access to our normal routines again, and you got to go to work and commute in your car and you get stuck in meetings. This is a skill that you can really use anywhere, anytime, and it's shown to be very effective. Another way that we can kind of get after this is to engage our senses, to use different coping skills that help engage our senses. And by doing this, we can kind of take our mind and pull it away from that stressful cycle of thoughts and feelings that we may be very wrapped up in as we're becoming increasingly more and more stressed. And when we engage the senses, we can kind of ground ourselves. We can kind of come back to now and allow our minds and bodies to focus on something different than the stressful experience that we feel very wrapped up in. So in a couple of examples of engaging the senses, and if you do a quick Google search on coping skills engaging the senses or engaging the senses for coping, you'll see lists of hundreds of these things online. And this is a very personalized thing, so you'll try some of these things and they'll work really well for you, and other things maybe not so much for you. But one example would be maybe if there's a candle or a hand soap that you really enjoy the smell of, maybe lighting that candle, focusing on watching the flame, doing your deep breathing near the candle so you're really experiencing that very strong, pleasant smell that you enjoy. Again, trying to focus your mind and then experiencing that sense that you're currently trying to engage. An example maybe of taste would be eating a cough drop, a very menthol-y cough drop, or a very strong candy, sour candy, a flavor that's very complex that maybe would last about a minute or two, a piece of gum, something that'll stick in your mouth for a second, that you can kind of focus your mind back in on and, describe the texture, the weight of the candy in your mouth. Focus all your thoughts and energy onto that candy, giving your brain something else to focus on besides just the stress. So those are a couple examples of ways you can engage your senses and kind of move your mind away from the stress and being wrapped up in all that, and refocus and kind of ground yourself in right now. Another skill that you can use, which is engaging your mind and your thoughts and sort of getting after that cycle of thinking that we can get caught up in, stressful thoughts that just kind of feed into themselves, and the negativity just kind of makes us feel stuck. So one way that we can try to pull ourselves out of that is to repeat something calming, something reassuring to yourself. And to do this, the repetition is going to help. slowly giving you something else to think about and something positive. So what I have up here that sounds reassuring to me is, I'm okay, I will get through this. So for me, that tells me I'm giving myself kind of two different messages here, right? So I'm telling myself right now, I'm okay. I don't feel okay, I don't feel my best, but I am okay. I have a roof over my head, I have clothes on my back, I have food, shelter, all the things that I need. Right now, I'm okay. And then the second message that I'm giving myself that's reassuring to me is that I will get through this, that this experience that I'm having is temporary. While it may feel like the stress will just keep compounding, the situation will just go on and on forever. All things come and go, and this is no different. This too shall pass. So those are two messages I'm kind of giving myself, and I'm very calmingly repeating them to myself to pull my thoughts out of the negative and to refocus on something neutral, calm, even positive. And the last skill that we have here is really one of the most important skills, I would say, for acute stress, similar to deep breathing. And really, if you take anything away, please take the deep breathing and give that a try. And then this last one here too. So this is the opportunity to just say, all right, enough's enough, time out, I need a break. I am feeling my rapid heartbeat, I am feeling my sweaty palms, the tension in my neck, and I need to remove myself from this situation in order to give myself an opportunity to bring my body back down. And so a couple of examples of ways to do this would be walking to the bathroom when we're back to working in offices. For those of us who are out of the office right now, walking to a vending machine or things like that, opportunities of how you could remove yourself at work if you need to. But really it just depends on how physiologically aroused you feel like you are. Are you in the state of panic, anxiety? Are you really having a significantly bad experience? If so, you might need to take a little bit longer for this time out. Maybe a trip to the bathroom won't be long enough for you, and maybe you need to remove yourself a little bit more from your environment. Maybe a trip outside to the atrium or to your backyard, or walking to your car, telling your coworkers or a friend, hey, I need to grab something from my car, taking a walk outside, going into your car. A lot of different excuses that you can use to break away if you feel like you need a break, and if you're not really comfortable telling someone that. If you are comfortable telling somebody that, if you're in a heated conversation, in fact, if the stress you're experiencing is really because you're having a disagreement with somebody and you don't know where things are going and you're getting stressed, you're feeling scared, timeout is still another really great available option to you. And this won't just benefit you, this will benefit the other person that you're having the conversation with as well. You will, if you are engaged in a conversation and you need a timeout, things are getting too heated. One thing you will need to do before you leave, though, is let that person know that you need that timeout. And you can say this in a lot of ways. It's something that you can kind of prepare before you go into a heavy conversation, if that would be helpful to you. And you could say something like, hey, I really need a break. This is getting really complex. This is getting really, really difficult. And I need a little bit of time to calm down and think about this. But I do plan to come back to this conversation in 20 minutes, or let's have this conversation again tomorrow. And what you're doing is a little bit of damage control before you leave that conversation, damage control for the relationship, right? So you let the person know you're not just walking out, slamming the door and abandoning them. What you really need is some space and time, but you fully intend to come back in a respectful way and have this conversation with the other person that you're engaged with. So that could be a situation of how that could look like if you were in a conversation and you needed to take that time out to de-escalate the body. Another way you could take a time out and really focus back in on your physical self is a technique called progressive muscle relaxation. And this is a technique where you systematically tense and then release the muscle groups in different parts of your body, from head to toe, from toe to head, top to bottom, bottom to top. And while you're doing this, you're engaging in that deep breathing as well at the same time. So if you're feeling very significant stress, this would be a great tool to use to kind of pull multiple skills in at the same time, really give you the time you need to de-escalate from the timeout, and then the deep breathing and the tensing and relaxing of the muscles gives you an opportunity to sort of release some of the tension you might be holding in different muscle groups in your body. So to do a progressive muscle relaxation, it's very easy. My best recommendation would actually be to go over to YouTube and search in progressive muscle relaxation. Tons of videos will pop up. And they're different durations. So depending on how much time you actually have to complete this task, maybe 5-minute video is best for you, or maybe if you'd like to try this before you go to bed at night, this is an excellent way to try to calm the body before going to sleep, especially after a very stressful day where your mind may be racing. They do have longer videos available if you have more time. And these are all guided, the YouTube ones, so there'll be some light music maybe in the background and somebody sort of coaching you and telling you to continue to breathe, giving you those reminders, and then telling you which part of the body to tense and relax as you move along. So really great resource there. I wanted to plug another resource. If you were able to view last week's town hall, Lieutenant Colonel Goddard talked about a great resource, an app called COVID Coach. It's a DoD app, and in it you will find tons of helpful information, but a lot of these stress management for acute stress techniques are more information or guided little tidbits and videos or audio clips are in there to kind of help walk you through these steps. So that includes deep breathing, a couple other mindfulness practices. There's also mood trackers, anxiety trackers in there if you want to kind of pay attention to your anxiety a little bit more and see if it's increasing, or just get a feel for what your experience is over the weeks. That kind of tool is available in there as well. So highly recommend that app. I think I'm definitely going to keep it on my phone even after restrictions are loosened for all the COVID health crisis stuff. So to conclude, today we talked about acute stress. We talked about the body's response and trying to gain more awareness of that for us personally. And then we talked about some of the skills that you can use to cope with that acute stress. When you realize that you're feeling it, feel that heart rate start to pump up, palms start to sweat, breathing start to change, we're going to want to do things like repeated, slow, deep breathing, engage in positive self-talk, engage the senses, and take a time out when we need to. Next week, we'll cover the chronic stress and a little bit of a preview of what we'll talk about there, some of the methods that we can focus on to work through that chronic stress. And before I go for the day, I wanted to just leave you with a couple other resources that we do still have available. Though we can't meet with these service providers in the office or in your home at this time, we do still have our military family life counselor who is able to meet you virtually. So that's through like a video conferencing platform or just over the phone. This is her number here, Miss Bet Ramsey. She's amazing. I love her. She's very engaged, very positive, very solution focused, and perfect if you're noticing that you're having some additional struggle with your stress, or if you'd like to talk out your personal situation and come up with a more personalized plan. We also still have our new parent support program registered nurse available for questions or weekly check-ins. Parenting at this time while we're trying to be homeschoolers and employees at work while teleworking, and try to get the laundry done and take showers. All of these tasks are very hard to do all in one space. And if you're finding that the parenting piece is something that is causing you stress or that you're struggling with, please reach out to her. She'd love to chat with you about some resources or strategies that she has for young children. And then, of course, if you're living in an environment that is unsafe or where you feel unsafe, or you have a friend who's living in a situation like that, that could be a very, very significant stressor for you at this time. Of course, we still have our Victim Advocacy Program 24/7 domestic violence hotline available. That number is at the bottom of the screen here. You can talk to an advocate at any time of the day, any time of the year, any time of the month that you would like at this number, and you can learn more about your reporting options for domestic violence, both restricted and unrestricted. And that's all I have for you this week. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I appreciate it. Now let me see if I can make this. Oh, I stopped my share. Okay, great. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I'll get the hang of this digital stuff here soon, hopefully. Have a great week and take some time out for yourself. Congratulations for finishing this video, because I'm sure that's no small feat, you know, in a busy house either. So hang in there. See you next week.